Hello folks, and welcome back to another marvelous anime video. Whenever we discuss or watch anime and manga, we inevitably create power rankings of the characters in our heads. Sometimes the show itself gives us these rankings, and other times we make them up through our own observations. Bleach, the seminal work of the legendary mangaka Tite Kubo, gives us a number of powerful characters that often beg the question of just how powerful they are compared to the rest of the cast. Ranking anime characters is never an easy job, as the power levels that they are supposed to have and what they display often vary depending on their opponent. For example, a character like Wonder Whis should in no way be able to counter the abilities of someone like Yamamoto Genryusai. Yes, we're told that Wonder Whis was specifically created so that he could contain the flames of Ryujin Jaka, but can you see how improbable that task is for someone who's not even a numbered Espada? The Quincy Emperor Yuavok himself couldn't fully deal with Yamaji's Bankai when they first clashed. For Wonder Whis to be able to trap even a fraction of that power within himself, no matter how specifically he was bred to do so, just doesn't make sense. Another great example would be when Ichigo first defeats Zaraki Kenpachi. We know that Kenpachi had not unleashed his true potential during that time, but for Ichigo, with his power level at that point in the story, defeating a person who held the title of Kenpachi makes no sense at all. This isn't a criticism of Tite Kubo at all, and we merely mean to make the point that nothing is ever set in stone. In today's video, we'll be discussing who we feel are the strongest Arrancars to hold the title of an Espada. The Espada are the strongest of Aizen soldiers and are the true, ultimate evolution of a hollow that has transcended their nature thanks to the power of the Hogyoku. With these creatures behind him, Aizen almost brings the entirety of the human world and soul society to its knees. We've seen these Espada going toe-to-toe with some of the strongest beings in the entire series. Aizen, one of the primary antagonists, has quite literally already ranked them in terms of their power level, but we have our own ideas regarding their true rankings. This list that we bring you today is entirely subjective and contains only our opinion, so if you disagree with it, that's completely understandable. That said, join us as we delve deep into the world of hollows and talk about the 12 strongest Espada to ever exist. Yes, we know that there can only be 10 Espada at any given time, and we aren't including any Privaron Espada. To find out why there are 12 Espada on this list, you'll simply have to watch this video to the end. So strap up and sharpen those Zanpakutos, and let's journey through the vast wastelands of Hueco Mundo, because here there be monsters. Luppi Antenor. Well, we stated that we won't be discussing Privaron Espada on this list. Arrancars like Luppi Antenor are fair game. After Kaname Tosen cleaves Grimmjow's arm off and incinerates it with a Hado for the Espada's perceived insubordination, the Sexta Espada is demoted, leaving a spot open. This spot would be filled by an Arrancar named Luppi Antenor, who would assume the Sexta Espada rank. Luppi was an Arrancar with a youthful and effeminate appearance. He has a frivolous public persona, which he uses to poorly cover up his actual vengeful, lewd, and arrogant personality. Luppi is also easily provoked into losing his temper and acting rashly. After being promoted to the position of the Sexta Espada, he seemed to have gained an even larger inflated ego. He constantly mocks his opponents for being weaker than him and invites multiple foes to attack him at the same time to make things interesting. During the Arrancar arc, he leads an attack on the human world where he's met by Hitsugaya, Yumichika, Matsumoto, and Ikaku. Luppi is shown to be powerful enough to hold his own against these Shinigami, who are all captain to vice captain level. Although initially gaining the upper hand over Hitsugaya, he is barely rescued from the Gote 13 captain's attack thanks to the use of negation before departing from the human world. Following this incident, we learn that his attack was a mere distraction for Aizen to capture Orihime. After finding out about this, he lashes out at Aizen and refuses to believe that Orihime is able to heal Grimmjow's arm, which had been incinerated to dust, as healing something that doesn't exist should be impossible. However, after Orihime restores Grimmjow's arm and Espada tattoo, Luppi is killed by the reinstated Sexta Espada, who punches a hole through his body and blasts him apart with a Cero. As you can see, this character, despite holding the Sexta Espada rank, felt like nothing more than a placeholder the entire time. Grimmjow was not just objectively a more powerful character, he was also infinitely more popular with the fans. There was no way that Luppi would have retained his rank as the Sexta Espada permanently. Luppi activates his Resurrection by releasing his sword Trepadora by uttering the words strangle. This unleashes his Resurrection, whose ability and form are very reminiscent of the Spider-Man villain Dr. Octopus, as he gains 8 tentacles that are attached to an octagonal device on his back. He's able to control these tentacles both in tandem and individually for various effects, such as grabbing, tossing, slashing, and impaling. Considering the scope of the abilities that Espada Espadas possess, to say Luppi's resurrection is underwhelming is understating it by a lot. Luppi does make an appearance during the 1000-year Blood War arc as part of Mayuri Kurotsuchi's zombie brigade. He is ultimately a character whom not many people will remember unless you're a hardcore fan of the series. Therefore, we feel he makes for the perfect individual to start this list. Aaroniero Arruruerie. In a hollow's natural evolution, a Vastolorde is the highest form it can evolve to. However, an Arrancar is a hollow that has transcended its nature and becomes something more. While it may sound logical that all Arrancars would be Vastolorde, as it's the final step in their evolution, that's not always the case. Considering how rare Vastolordes are, it would make no sense at all for the Espada and their Fraction to be one. Therefore, it's clear that not all Espada are Vastolorde, and an Arrancar that is evolved from a Menos of a lower evolution will never be as strong as one who's created from a Vastolorde. It therefore makes sense for Aaroniero Arruruerie, who's not even an Ajuhas class Menos, but a Gillian that's been transformed into an Arrancar, to rank this low in the video. We have to agree with Eisen here for placing Aaroniero as the Noveno Espada, or the 9th ranked Espada, as he's quite clearly the weakest. However, it's an indication of his prowess that while there are many former Ajuhas among the Arrancar, he managed to become a single-digit Espada despite being a mere former Gillian. He's also the last member of the first generation of Espada. Aaroniero is capable of absorbing other beings into himself. By this, we mean that it's able to absorb their memories, physical form, attacks, abilities, and even their muscle memory. Its resurrection is activated by uttering the words Devour, which unleashes the seal on its Zanpakuto, named Gluttonera. Its abilities are mostly the same as those of the special hollow Metastasia. If a Shinigami's Zanpakuto touches a specific set of Aaroniero's tentacles, the weapon is destroyed. Due to its lack of power in comparison to its compatriots, Aaroniero relies heavily on psychological warfare to destabilize its opponents, as it can even take on the form of the individuals it has absorbed and mimic them down to the most minute detail. This is seen when it transforms into the deceased Cayenne Shiba, who had been absorbed by Metastasia to distress Rukia during their battle. However, seeing as it was killed by a lieutenant-class Shinigami like Rukia, who doesn't even have her Bankai, just confirms to us that in the grand scheme of things, Aaroniero isn't anywhere near as powerful as its fellow Espada. The reason that it retains its rank is because amongst all the Arrancar and Espada, Aaroniero Arruruerie has the highest potential for growth due to its ability to absorb beings and make itself stronger in the process. While his potential might be limitless, in the state in which we're introduced to him, he's not much of a threat. There are also limitations on his powers, such as not being able to use them fully under sunlight. His heads are also protected by what seems to be a glass capsule that's easily shattered, as seen when Rukia breaks it with San no Mai Shirafune. Thus, due to the various factors we've mentioned, Aaroniero, despite having an interesting ability and very high potential, is the weakest of the Arrancars to hold the rank of Espada. The only reason we ranked it above Luppi is because we believe that Luppi's power levels were that of a mere Fraction, and that he was simply promoted as Eisen needed a disposable pawn. Aaroniero, on the other hand, retained its position as a single-digit Espada from the inception of the group until its death. This, for us, justifies its position on our list. Zommari Rureaux. Originally ranked as the Septima Espada, Zommari Rureaux is one of the most interesting characters in terms of design. He's introduced to us as the 7th ranked Espada during his clash with Byakuya Kuchiki during the Hueco Mundo arc. Zommari is shown to have a calm and meditative personality, but harbors a deep-seated hatred towards the Shinigami. His hatred for the Shinigami stems from his belief that they slaughter his kind due to their sheer arrogance, thinking they're capable of judging hollows for their actions. He's ruthless in this regard, as seen when he doesn't hesitate to try to finish off Rukia, who was already badly injured after her fight with Aaroniero. Despite his calm demeanor, Zommari doesn't believe in the concepts of honor and fair play, especially when it comes to Shinigamis. Another contradiction to his serious and contemplative personality is that Zommari can be extremely arrogant himself, constantly underestimating his opponents. During his fight with Byakuya, instead of testing out the captain's powers and limits, he blindly attacks, trying to overwhelm him through sheer force. He's so confident that, in a typical comic book villain fashion, he divulges all his abilities and how they function to Byakuya, which leads to his demise. Zommari is also extremely devoted towards Eisen, screaming his praises even as his body fades away after being defeated. The Septima Espada represents death through intoxication or ecstasy. Zommari also claims to be the fastest Espada, being able to create after images that can bleed if they take damage. While he does display impressive speed, there's nothing to confirm his claim about being the fastest other than his word. His Zanpakuto, Brujeria, which translates to witchcraft in Spanish, is released by the command Subside, transforming his body completely and giving him some fairly overpowered abilities. His body ability is covered with 58 eyes, which he uses for his ability Armor. What Armor does is anything that Zommari's eyes perceive is marked by him and falls under his control. Each of his 58 eyes can mark things individually, leaving him with next to no blind spots or weaknesses. For instance, during his battle with Byakuya, he marks the captain's arm and leg, which allows him to control it against the owner's will. He can also just target a person's head and take control of the entire body, as the head contains the brain, which he takes over. With this ability, Zommari can cause his opponents to harm themselves while he simply watches. This ability, although overpowered, is similar to Aikido, and once his opponents find out its nature, it can easily be blocked by their own Kido. There's also the fact that abilities of this nature, which are akin to curses, are not as absolute as they appear and will not work against individuals who have Reiatsu far greater than Zommari. Someone like Szayelapporo, who is extremely cunning and has the brains to break down his opponent's abilities and counter them, can also easily defeat Zommari despite being ranked lower than him. His powers, while interesting and overpowered in certain scenarios, still don't quite justify him being any higher than number 10 on our list. Nnoitra Gilga. Despite being ranked as the 5th strongest Espada, we believe that Nnoitra doesn't truly deserve this rank. Outside of his insanely strong hero, which he claims to be the toughest of all the Espada, there really isn't anything extraordinary about him. In fact, Nnoitra was originally the Octava Espada, who harbored deep resentment towards the then Tres Espada Nelliel. When asked why that was the case, he simply stated that he hated the fact that a woman was ranked higher than him. Nnoitra would plot with Szayelapporo to ambush Nelliel, injuring her head, which would cause her to become unstable and turn into a child. Following this, both Nnoitra and Szayelapporo would be granted promotions, with the former taking on the rank of the Quinto Espada and the latter assuming the now vacant Octava Espada rank. If it came down to just having a bad attitude, Nnoitra would probably be ranked as the number 1 Espada. He's a callous, sadistic, chauvinistic battle maniac. For a person who's obsessed with proving his strength, Nnoitra is not averse to attacking people using underhanded means, like when he defeated Nelliel and attacked Grimmjow when the latter was already severely injured. He claims to be searching for death in glorious combat and mercilessly culls those weaker than him using his double crescent blades. Unlike Zommari, who reserved his hatred towards the Shinigami, Nnoitra is indiscriminate in his carnage. He's known to have killed hundreds of hollows and Arankars just to satisfy his battle lust. Nnoitra wishes to climb the ranks of the Espada and become the strongest there is. However, looking at his power levels in hindsight, that would be a task which he would never have accomplished. He activates his Resurrection by releasing his Zanpakuto, Santa Teresa, with the command Pray, which grants him additional limbs with weapons that he can generate at will. At this point in the story, Nnoitra is powerful enough to toy with Ichigo and his friends effortlessly. His rampage, however, is permanently halted when he's faced by Zaraki Kenpachi. During their clash, to Noitra's credit, he finally makes Kenpachi take him somewhat seriously. He forces Kenpachi to use Kendo and abandon his own fighting style to defeat him. However, when Kenpachi uses both hands to swing his sword, Nnoitra is instantly defeated, as Kenpachi's Zanpakuto cuts through his vaunted hero like a hot knife through butter. While he might not have achieved his goal of becoming the strongest Espada, he does achieve his goal of dying on his feet in combat. The fact that Nnoitra doesn't always fight fairly gives him a lot of advantage in battle, and he could easily defeat all the individuals we've mentioned before him on this list. The reason he's not ranked higher is because the people we're going to be discussing next are just on another level compared to him, at least in our opinion. It's true that while he does push Kenpachi to take him seriously, all the characters we'll be discussing next would probably have done the same as well. Therefore, we feel Nnoitra's rank for this video makes complete sense. Nelliel Tu Odelschwanck. Formerly the Tres Espada, Nelliel was ambushed by Nnoitra and Szayelapporo, causing her to be gravely injured. She would develop a crack on her mask, which led to her Reiatsu leaking involuntarily, causing her to shrink into a childlike form. In that form, she's noticeably weaker than she is in her adult form. Ichigo and his friends first encounter Nelliel and her Fractions on their way to Las Noches. They are the first non-hostile Arankars that they come across. We first get to see her return to her adult form during Ichigo's battle with Nnoitra. After transforming into an adult, she's about to defeat the Quinto Espada single-handedly when she reverts back to her childlike state. We find out that she and Nnoitra share a long history, with the latter constantly challenging her in battles and being defeated all the time. She has the ability to absorb a Cero and fire it back, doubling its power by adding her own Reiatsu to it. She's also capable of performing minor healing with her saliva. Nelliel's ability, Lanzador Verde, allows her to throw her Zanpakuto at extreme speeds, like a spear. This attack attack was powerful enough to destroy Nnoitra Gilga. After the 1,000 Years Blood War arc, she administers the realm of Hueco Mundo along with Tyr Harribel, another former trace Espada. During the manga's final arc, we are told that Urahara Keisuke had created a device that allowed Nelliel to switch between her adult and child forms at will. Despite her being generally very strong and holding the number 3 rank, we hardly get to see her fight anyone noteworthy in earnest, making it hard for us to put her any higher on this list. Szayelapporo Granz. Despite officially being ranked as the second weakest Espada, the abilities that Szayelapporo displays in comparison to some of his higher-ranked compatriots force us to consider his ranking categorically false. Szayelapporo embodies the mad scientist trope to perfection and is, in some ways, the hollow equivalent of Mayuri Kurotsuchi. He completely lacks any moral ethics when it comes to furthering his knowledge and views individuals as mere test subjects, including his own fractions. Szayelapporo has no real loyalty towards anyone and merely follows Aizen because it allows him to further his research. He has an extremely condescending and lewd attitude, which makes him view other individuals as subhuman and beneath him. After claiming the title of the 8th ranked Espada, Szayelapporo's ego becomes even greater. He's able to devour his fraction to heal himself and restore his Reiatsu, and shows absolutely no remorse while doing so. Szayelapporo can also analyze his opponent's Reiatsu using special bugs and completely seal it, preventing them from using their abilities, including Bankai, as seen in his battle with Renji and Uryu. Once Szayelapporo has analyzed his opponent's abilities, he's able to fully counter them, making him impervious to almost all attacks. This is shown when, after analyzing the spirit structure and Reiatsu of the attack called Cero Syncretico, he's able to easily disperse it. Unleashing his Zanpakuto, Fornicaris, requires him to utter the word sip, allowing him to enter his Resurrection form. In this form, he can release a black liquid which has the ability to create perfect clones of the individuals it comes in contact with. The word perfect is key here, as while the clones retain much of the same characteristics and powers of the original, they are slightly modified to fit Szayelapporo's vision of perfection. When these clones are defeated, they disperse back into the black liquid, only for more clones to rise in their place. He's also able to grab any individual with his wings and create voodoo dolls of them that come replete with miniature organs. Just like a voodoo doll, any harm that he does to the organs of the dolls reflects damage to the individual whose doll it is. If Szayelapporo is somehow devoured by another being, he's capable of possessing said being and controlling it for his own use. He's nigh immortal, as he's able to be completely reborn no matter how fatally wounded he is, as long as he's made physical contact with his victim. He's able to impregnate his victims by transferring his essence into them. Szayelapporo then devours his victim's organs, and his life force emerges within them fully restored. This process, as to be expected, is fatal to the host, as they perish as soon as Szayelapporo is reborn. This man was literally unkillable, except for Mayuri Kurotsuchi coming up with some next-level hacks. He had broken the code for immortality, which was something not even the strongest Espada managed to do. If Szayelapporo had managed to stay alive, he would have proven to be a much greater test than the likes of Zommari, Nnoitra, and Luppi, all of whom were ranked above him. If given enough prep time, Szayelapporo would be a serious threat to some of the strongest characters in Bleach. Of that, there can be no doubt. Considering his popularity amongst readers, Kubo decided to bring him back for the one-shot manga, No Breaths from Hell. In this one-shot, we see that Szayelapporo has become a denizen of hell after his death. He's the one that tells Ichigo and the lieutenants about the true nature of the Konso Reisai ritual. He tells them how the gates of hell had begun to be opened from within, and the Konso Reisai was actually a ritual that damned the souls of the dead captains to hell, as their reishi was too powerful to be absorbed back into nature. From the looks of things, we still haven't seen the last of this psychotic Espada. Grimmjow Jaegerjaquez. Grimmjow is arguably the most popular Espada amongst Bleach fans. Long before he was an Eren Carr, Grimmjow was an Ajuhas whose hunting grounds were the deserts of Hueco Mundo. He cannibalized one Manos after another, hoping to become a Vasto Lorde, but to no avail. He would finally come across a group of other Ajuhas who tried to consume him for similar purposes but failed. The group recognizes Grimmjow's might and decides to elect him as their leader, which he decides to accept begrudgingly. Together, the group continues on their journey to become Vasto Lordes. However, after spending what seems to be eons feeding on other Manos without any results, his companions begin to despair and give up on their goals. Despite being taken aback by the decision, Grimmjow decides to leave them to their fates and continue on his own. However, his companions believe that, unlike Grimmjow, they were never destined to become a Vasto Lorde and ask him to devour them so that they can fuel his growth and become a part of him. He begrudgingly accepts and devours them, and it is confirmed later that Grimmjow was indeed a Vasto Resto Lorde-class Menos prior to becoming an Arrancar, meaning that his companion's sacrifice really did work. He proves to be Ichigo's rival throughout the Aizen storyline, constantly challenging the protagonist at various points. Despite initially proving too powerful, he's eventually defeated by Ichigo. Grimmjow has a violent streak and can appear callous and sadistic. He loves to fight and is willing to take on opponents only if he considers them worth his time. Despite his bravado, he displays a surprising degree of pragmatism when he berates Ulquiorra for not finishing up an injured Ichigo, noting that he might become a significant threat to them in the future. Unlike the likes of Nnoitra and Szayelapporo, Grimmjow seems to have a clear code of honor and a soft spot for people he considers under his protection. Out of all the Espada, with the exception of Harribel, Grimmjow has the best relationship with his Fraction. During the 1,000-year Blood War arc, he seems to have grown even stronger than he was, killing Askin Nak Lavar, one of the elite guards of Yuhavak. He possesses an extremely high battle IQ and is arguably one of the strongest Espada when it comes down to pure combat. He transitions from a villain to an anti-hero character over the duration of the series. Grimmjow's Resurrection is activated by him unleashing his Zanpakuto, Pantera, with the word grind. This grants him a host of new abilities, including the ability to turn his claws into invisible ranged reishi blades. He can launch these claws to lacerate his opponents and tear them apart from afar, making it his strongest ability. Grimmjow is also easily able to keep up with a Bankai-enhanced Ichigo. Considering the fact that he's one of the 3 Espadas still in existence and seems to have grown exponentially stronger by the time of the 1,000 Years Blood War arc, we feel this is a valid position for him to occupy on this list. Ulquiorra Cifer. Arguably the Espada with the coolest Resurrection, Ulquiorra Cifer is yet another fan favorite. From Ulquiorra onwards, the Espada that we're going to be discussing have some serious firepower. The Quattro Espada is leagues more powerful than the likes of Grimmjow, at least during the whole Aizen story arc. To show just how powerful Ulquiorra is, he and his fellow Espada, who were ranked above him, were forbidden from using their Resurrection within the fortress of Las Noches, as the mere act of unleashing their blade had the potential to destroy Aizen's stronghold. Ulquiorra's character development from an unfeeling, emotionless monster to finally grasping what the meaning of a heart is as he dies was one of the most well-written character arcs in the series. He completely devastates Ichigo during their battle, and Kubo needs to give the protagonist a one-off, super overpowered transformation to settle their battle for good. Ulquiorra is also the only Espada with a secondary Resurrection, which, according to him, not even Aizen was aware of. He activates his Resurrection by removing the seals on his Zanpakuto, Murcielago, with the words enclose. He gains immense boosts to his physical attributes, rendering even a Bankai-enhanced Ichigo unable to follow his movements. He also has access to all the usual Espada abilities like Cero Oscuras and Gran Rey Cero. Ulquiorra is also able to generate javelins made of Reiatsu, which he can use as projectiles or a melee weapon. He's hesitant about firing these javelins at close range as their blasts are capable of causing severe damage to their surroundings. In his Segunda Etapa, or his second Resurrection form, he appears more bat-like, and his physical attributes are enhanced even further. His energy javelins are even more powerful, making them incredibly destructive but equally more difficult to control. His fight with Ichigo under the dark skies of Hueco Mundo is considered one of the most iconic fights in the entire series. He literally kills off the main character with little to no effort and is only defeated thanks to the power of plot armor. Uryu describes his aura as being composed of something entirely foreign and different from any Reiatsu he had ever encountered. It might have come across as alien to the young Quincy because up until that point, they had not encountered any individual with a Reiatsu so overwhelming and dark as Ulquiorra's. To be honest, if Ulquiorra goes up against Tier Harribel in his Segunda Etapa form, the results might be up in the air. One can see a clear difference in the power level from Nnoitra to Ulquiorra, despite them being next to each other in ranking. The Espada that represents nothingness in death most certainly deserves to be placed at least this high on our list. Tier Harribel. Tier Harribel is ranked as the 4th strongest Espada despite her official ranking being 3. Unlike other Arrancars, she doesn't believe in needless slaughter to enhance one's powers, defying the law of the jungle that governs the Menos. Instead, she believes in working together to achieve a collective goal, becoming stronger together in the process. Harribel was rescued from a prototype Arrancar by Aizen after he learned of her existence. He would grant her the power to protect those who were close to her in exchange for her service. She is shown to be extremely loyal to Aizen and is not averse to chastising her fellow Espada if she senses any disrespect towards their master. Harribel is also also one of the most popular characters amongst fans due to her attractive character design and immense power. Harribel can create and control water, which she can use to various effect for both defensive and offensive purposes. Her Resurrection is activated when she unseals her weapon, Tiburon, by uttering the word hunt. In her Resurrection form, she is able to launch highly pressurized water at her enemies, which can slice away even the strongest materials it comes into contact with. Any water or ice element-based attacks directed towards her are rendered useless, as the attack simply boils and dissipates into water vapor around her. Harribel is also capable of creating enough water and unleashing it upon her opponents from a height to wash them away and drown more than 2 entire city blocks. Unlike some of the other Espada, she is a fully fledged Vasto Lorde that has been transformed into an Arrancar, placing her in a different league than the rest of her compatriots, especially the ones below her. We've done a full character anatomy video on her, so be sure to check that out if you're interested in learning more about her. The fact that she's never defeated by the Shinigami and requires an involved Aizen to land 2 direct hits to bring her down speaks volumes to her power levels. Despite being slashed by Aizen twice, Harribel still survives and, following his demise, goes on to rule Hueco Mundo as its new ruler. For someone who's considered to be powerful enough to be the new ruler of all Hollows, this is a fitting place on the list. Barragan Louisenbairn. From the new to the old, as we head towards the end of our list, we think it's about time we talked about Barragan Louisenbairn, the former emperor of Hueco Mundo. Barragan had lorded over the wastelands of Hueco Mundo for as long as memory served. There had been no one to challenge his authority, as he controlled the very power of time itself. To be more accurate, he didn't so much control the power as much as he possessed it, as we'll explain in some time. Barragan was considered powerful enough for Aizen to use his Shikai Kyoka Suigetsu to slaughter his court and force him to submit. He joined the Espada merely seeking an opportunity to gain more power so that he might one day slay Aizen and gain a measure of retribution for the humiliation he suffered that day. Barragan could possibly be one of the oldest Hollows in existence, and he most certainly was a Vasto Lorde prior to becoming an Arrancar. Barragan has the power to age and decay anything within a certain radius of his body. This effect was so powerful that it would even affect inorganic objects and Kido. According to him, if the person that cast the Kido could age and die, so could the ability. Touching him was a death sentence, and if that wasn't enough, he could release a miasma from himself whose speed and direction he could alter at will. This miasma had the same effect as it could rapidly age and decay anything it touched. This also meant that all attacks, whether physical or energy-based, wouldn't be able to touch him, as they would rapidly age and dissipate before reaching him. This made him completely invulnerable. The reason why we said that he possessed this massively overpowered ability, rather than him controlling it, is because he himself is not immune to his ability's effects. He dies when a limb affected by his ability is transferred to his guts, spreading the aging effect into himself. In the end, the only thing that could truly kill Barragan was his own powers, and if that isn't wildly overpowered, then we don't know what is. His Resurrection, which he unleashes by releasing his Zanpakuto Arrogante by uttering the words decay, drastically alters his physical form. While many considered his unsealed form to be very underwhelming for a number 2 ranked Espada, it serves to visually enhance his new transformation. In his Resurrection, Barragan looks like death himself and transforms into a menacing figure of skull and bones draped in royal regalia. He looks akin to an ancient undead emperor or an arch-lich who brings death wherever he treads. It's one of the most intimidating and badass transformations in the whole series. While we couldn't grant His Highness the top spot on our list, we think this is a more than deserved rank for the former God King of Hueco Mundo. Yammy Llargo. Paraded around as the weakest Espada, and ranked number 10 for most of the series, Kubo does a stellar job of subverting the audience by revealing that Yammy was actually the strongest Espada in existence. He was even more powerful in terms of raw Reiatsu and strength than Stark. We find out that the Espada numbers don't rank from 1 to 10, but instead from 0 to 9. After unleashing his Zanpakuto Ira by saying the words Enrage, Yammy finally transforms, and his tattoo changes from 10 to 0. In this form, Yammy has access to all the Reiatsu that has accumulated over the years from eating and sleeping, which is a unique ability to him. Further, he's quite literally the Incredible Hulk of Bleach, as his strength only increases the angrier he gets. It takes the combined efforts of both Kenpachi and Byakuya to bring him down. Yammy's smallest gestures are capable of producing indescribable devastation due to his vast powers. He also has access to all the abilities that an Arrancar has, but they're enhanced to an insane degree thanks to his Reiatsu levels. What Yammy lacks in regards to brains, he more than makes up overwhelmingly with his brawn. If he possessed half the intelligence of any of the Espada, Yammy would be truly unstoppable. While he's definitely more powerful than Stark in terms of pure spiritual energy and power, we feel that if it came down to a one-on-one battle between the two, Stark would easily outmaneuver him. The difference between the two spiritual power levels is nowhere as great as the gap between their battle acumen and IQ. It is for this reason alone we have to give Yammy the second spot on our list, despite him technically being ranked above Stark by Aizen. Coyote Starrk. Long ago, in the vast darkness of Hueco Mundo, there dwelt a Menos of immeasurable strength. Although by its very nature it craved to devour its kind, it had become so powerful that anyone who wandered into its vicinity simply perished due to not being able to withstand its aura. This left it extremely lonely, and its power became its curse as no one could survive its presence. It envied the weaker Hollows, as they had something to strive for and they didn't need to dwell in solitude. At some point, therefore, it split itself into two completely unique entities bereft of their original personality to end its own solitude. These two beings were Coyote Starrk and Lillinet Gingerbug. Neither knew who the original being they emerged from was, but by dividing itself into these two, the original Hollow had finally escaped its solitude. Despite being divided into two new beings, the Hollows continued to die near their presence, but at least the two had each other. They were free to wander anywhere and to do anything. Stark and Lillinet decided that if they could not become weaker to find a group, they would find someone strong who wouldn't die in their presence. As fate would have it, Aizen would stumble across the two sitting atop a mound of hollow corpses in his search for Vasto Lordes to join his army. When asked by the former captain whether they had killed all those Hollows, they replied that the Hollows had simply died due to their presence. Greatly impressed by this, Aizen offers the two a place by his side, with them both agreeing, having finally found someone who doesn't die simply by being near them. Imagine being so powerful that your mere aura crushes everything around you to death. It's a surprise that all those Shinigami in the battle over fake Karakura town were even able to stand up in their presence. Coyote Starrk has a laid-back personality and doesn't truly seem to enjoy conflict much. However, this laid-back attitude masks his incredible battle IQ and fighting prowess, making him a formidable foe. Unlike other Espada, he's able to fire his Ceros without forming any specific signs or poses. After they release their Resurrección Los Lobos, by combining together, they can split their soul to form a huge pack of spirit wolves who relentlessly pursue their foes and explode on coming into contact with the target. This ability is said to be more powerful than any Cero and is capable of overwhelming even two Captain-class Shinigami simultaneously. Stark's power was so overwhelming that Kyoraku almost revealed his Bankai to defeat him, and we all know just how powerful Kyoraku's Bankai is after it was revealed during the 1,000 Years Blood War arc. The Bankai is so powerful and risky that it cannot be used with Kyoraku's allies in the vicinity, as they'd be caught in it. Regardless of this risk, he was going to use this ability against Stark, which just goes to highlight how powerful the Primera Espada truly was. It's a shame we didn't get to witness him in combat even more. In our personal opinion, Stark is undisputably the most powerful Espada there has ever been. Marvelous verdict! As is the nature of most lists of this kind, they're extremely subjective, and you might have a different opinion from ours. Aizen himself kept changing and shuffling the ranks and members of the Espada during the course of their existence. The Privaron Espada are a prime example of this, having been replaced by much more powerful Arrancars down the line, despite being numeros at some point themselves. We want to hear in the comment section down below what your strongest Espada list looks like, or whether you agree with the ranks given to them by Aizen. We hope that this video has served not only to increase your knowledge about these powerful Menos, but Bleach as a whole. Thanks for sticking with us right to the end of this one. You can find more Bleach-related content on our channel, where we cover all your favorite anime and manga and characters in detail. For now though, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.